Parents of uncool children, when did you realize your child wasn't one of the popular kids? My oldest son has always been quiet and a bit of an introvert. He's tall for his age, lanky, wears glasses, plays trombone in the school band, and is a complete computer geek. There were never any delusions that he was going to be one of the popular kids. That said, he is popular amongst his fellow nerdlings. My youngest son has always been pretty popular, especially among the girls. We have had little girls calling the house, giggling and asking to speak to him since he was in 4th grade. He's in middle school now, and I fear what it will be like when he gets into high school. My son got locked in his tuba case by the other band kids. He's not even cool among the not cool kids. I know my daughter is uncool. Why? I have no idea. She's a great kid, very outgoing and funny in that 3rd grade kind of way. She gets picked on a bit for the things she likes. Hello Kitty, Barbie, MLP, etc. As a kid, I was super unpopular too, and I tell her all the time not to worry about it. She'll find that group of friends who love her to death and want to play with her. She came home very excited last month because a new girl in school had the same Hello Kitty backpack. They made fast friends, and I hope they stay friends. A single dad is pretty cute and uber dorky like me. This topic could turn dark at any moment, so enjoy the wholesomeness while you can, viewers. My daughter has always been quick to make friends. She always has someone to play with at the park. Kids follow her around like she's their leader, and she has a blast. In school, though, she's not popular. She's the oldest in her class because her birthday is so late in the year, so she's taller than everyone, started losing her teeth before the others, and more mature than some of them. The other kids pick on her, call her names, hide her things, make fun of her bunny teeth, adult teeth that are still at that cute but a little too big for your face stage, and give her a hard time. I don't understand it. She's so popular at playgrounds and parks, but she's an outcast at school. Ah, the days of adolescent playground bullying. Been there, sister, been there. My oldest is a crybaby. I love him a bit, but he's a whiner of the highest order. I guess I realized it about when he left kindergarten. He's in 5th grade now, and he still curls up in a ball with real tears whenever he thinks he might be in trouble, even if he isn't, which he almost always isn't. I love him. But it's sad. When they reminded me of myself, my middle child loves video games and is amazing in academics and has mild autistic tendencies. My eldest loves bugs and animals and gets distracted easily. Neither one of them is prom king or queen material. The youngest is a born cheerleader. Why do I have all of those not good tendencies? I also love bugs. I also like video games, but I'm not good at academics. When he cried all the time in 1st through 3rd grade, then in 5th grade he insisted he was going to be a dragon hunter. That continued for a few years. He actually researched getting grants so he could travel to Europe to dig up dragon bones and prove they existed. Then he got into drawing swords and writing stories involving the swords. It's all good. I accepted him as he is and got him playing Magic and D&D. Now he watches anime all the time and is working with people to develop and write an online RPG and site while doing online schooling and working 2 part-time jobs. I figured he'd never give me a grandchild, but she's due in July. The best thing a child can do is surprise and make proud a good parent who's always supported them. I don't know if she's uncool yet because she's too little, but I witnessed a situation that brought up a lot of feelings. My 4-year-old daughter went to a birthday party of some little girl from her kindergarten. They had these mini blow-up jumping castles. I noticed 2 little girls standing at the entrance of one that blocked it when my daughter tried to get in and made up some rule about why she couldn't. I did laugh my butt off when my daughter immediately thought, screw it, and just ran around and back to the other entrance, but the girls got up and went to the other one when my daughter hopped in, leaving her in there alone. I got really depressed just watching her play by herself and the other girls being mean. Part of me wanted to deflate the other castle, sealing the little girls in a rubbery tomb. The other wanted to run over and just hug my daughter and never let go. Needless to say, I bought her a lot of lollies and played with her like crazy after the party. But then, a few days later when I dropped her off at kindergarten, some of the girls called out to her and ran over and started playing. I can't figure out toddler social dynamics. There is a 10-year difference between me and my youngest brother, and I first noticed that he was just not a cool person when I picked him up from school and found out that he has a tendency to hiss like a cat at people when they said something he didn't like. God, I love the little weirdo. I'm an older sister by 8 years, and I noticed my middle school sister wasn't popular simply on the basis she got bullied so much that she had to hide in the library during lunch, and she takes an odd route home to avoid the kids who actually corner her on the way home. She's the extremely shy type, and the butthole kids don't really help that. They stole her lunch and spit in it once apparently, and she came home depressed one day because of it. Sometime around middle school, it became apparent that regardless of who she tried to be friends with or how much effort she put into being social, she was always the odd one out, always the friend and never the best friend. No one calls her to hang out or go anywhere. She doesn't date. I still haven't figured out why, unless it is basic, not wanting to be seen with someone who might be a lesbian. This is the southern US after all. It's killing her. It's killing me to see how isolated and left out she is. She's nearly done with high school, and I can only hope that college will be better. For now, she has an online group she considers friends. There's that, at least. I can't deny that when I was young, it took me a lot of time to learn how to socialize a lot better with people in person, but until that point, I had a lot of online friends and interactions that really did help keep me going. It does make me sad to think that without the interconnectivity of the internet, some people would just be completely alone, and that thought honestly breaks my heart. It's why I try to be as nice as possible to people where and when I can. My son, who is almost 15, has several learning disabilities, ADD, dyspraxia, and mild Asperger's. He finds it very difficult to make friends and keep them. He also struggles with low self-esteem. I've tried to get him into all sorts of different hobbies, but he's not interested. The only thing he loves is video games, to the point that he could easily play them for 15 hours a day. He also has a very offbeat humor, which most people don't get. I love him to bits because he's my son and his heart is in the right place, but I do worry about how he's going to get through life and form healthy friendships and relationships. Man, parents have so much to worry about when they have kids and stuff, and it totally makes sense. But even when I was a kid in high school, I was going through a point where I thought, man, I'm never gonna make friends. But I was lucky enough to meet people that appreciated and loved me and just generally helped me become the person I am today. And hell, I ain't no success story, but I certainly like who I am, at least on the best of days. But that's one of the hardest things in life, growing up and learning to love yourself. I had 6 children, 5 girls and a boy. Some were popular and some weren't. My unpopular, kind of reserved and socially awkward during primary school son is in med school and will be a doctor next year. I don't think popularity is necessarily a good criteria for judging how your child is doing. In some classes, the kind of behavior that allows you to fit into a class and be popular are not all that positive, such as bullying more vulnerable children. I think the most important thing is for children to be true to themselves and who they are, and not compromise that to fit in. Hopefully they will find friends who are like them. I thought it was interesting that the creators of South Park were nerdy kids who didn't fit in. Sometimes the most successful school children are not all that successful when it comes to real life, and the children who are strong enough to be themselves can be quite successful. That is certainly true in some cases, but sometimes not. This isn't really what this was about, but I'm glad that they brought it up. My youngest son is a future neckbeard. He's a great kid and very active in Boy Scouts. He's 14 and only needs a few things to get his eagle. He can easily achieve it before 16. He's good in math and science and very well spoken when something interests him. He can explain plants and trees and geology of an area to younger Scouts on a level far above the average 14-year-old. But outside of Scouts, he is very socially awkward. He has a hard time making friends. Unless they are Scouts or gamers, he's overweight but not morbidly obese, and I guess average looks. I wish more of my wife's genes had kicked in. At home, it's all Xbox and computers. He has no interest in the outside world. If I ask, hey, let's go walk the dog down by the river, I just get, no, I don't feel like it. If I'm working in the yard on a hot day and my wife says, why don't you go and see if your dad could use some help? His reply is usually, if he needs me, he'll come get me. He's had his few middle school girlfriends that we all know are counted in weeks, but when they break up, he's devastated and becomes recluse for a while. His room is generally clean, but it smells of feet and butt. He won't shower or change clothes unless we tell him to. We actually held off to see how long he would do it. He wore the same t-shirt for 5 days over summer break. I didn't ask about underwear and socks. We just explained it and told him to go shower and change. A lot of these stories are really old and I'm just sat here like, man, I want to know how these people turned out. Like, did they surprise them? Yes? No? I hope so. I realized when we moved to a community with its own playground. My daughter is 5. She's so loving and sweet and very intelligent, but she's not good at making friends. She has no problem asking anyone to play, but most of the kids immediately shut her down and walk away. I have no clue why. Some Sometimes they'll give her some bullcrap line about her having to stay in the ice castle, which is one corner of the playground. She asks if she can come out, but they tell her no, and then they go off by themselves. So she sits there, dejected and defeated. She's such a genuinely good child and a good person, and I don't know why the other kids treat her like they do. I remember the same thing happening to me when I was her age. Kids can be so cruel. I knew before kindergarten that our son was not cool. He's an artsy, strange, nerdy kid that is bad at sports. He couldn't catch a ball when all the other boys could. He's also brilliant, has near perfect pitch, can tell a joke better than anyone his age, and is particularly empathetic. He always consoles whoever is having a bad day. One of the aspects that clued me into his wonderful nerdiness is that he'd construct a pretend world with all sorts of characters and scenarios, and could not understand why the other kids, excepting a few like-minded lovable oddballs, did not want to participate. He's picked on. It is amazing how cruel 5-year-old children can be. He's the target of the alpha male types. Until 2nd grade, he did not realize that he was uncool, but then it hit him. He's now 10 and in 4th grade. His teachers tell us that he is well liked, but he does not have any friends, which my wife sees as a problem, but I don't. He asked me once when he was 7 why other kids didn't like him. I pointed out that a lot of people like him, just that the cool kids didn't want to include him in their clique. And that's okay. I let him know that neither his mother or I were ever cool, and we've done okay for ourselves in this world. Aside from being a total geek for old school Mega Man, my 11-year-old is crazy proper and very white in an almost all-black school. He gets called Whitey constantly, and kids from the bus have beat the crap out of him and his little brother on more than a few occasions. He will now choke anyone that puts him on the defensive, which comes off a little bit like a serial killer in training, but to the proper thing, I once got a call from the principal because my son had set up a meeting with him, stating that he needed to switch schools because these kids all have behavioral issues and I can't get an education in this environment. No snark or anything like that. He was completely on point and very upset that the teacher didn't have her classroom under control. There is an HR director hiding in my kid's body. A little off, but damn, do I like my boy. I am a much older sister, which is sort of similar in a lot of ways. I realized my brother wasn't one of the popular kids when I went to visit his school to show off the high school band program. The cute-looking, well-spoken kids tend to sit together, and so do the less cute, dorky kids. I always sort of guessed, though, because he'd always been that weird gamer kid with beta tendencies, and hardly ever got invited to birthday parties. It was just confirmed when I went to visit him. Damn, girl, slapping your brother with the beta tendencies. Cruel, cruel woman, even if it is true. My son is 10. I think I realized he's not part of the popular crowd last year. He had a sort of falling out with his best and only friend. After they stopped hanging out, I'd ask him who he played with at recess or who he sat with at lunch. And he'd tell me he played alone and sat at the end of the lunch table alone by the trash can. It broke my heart. He's such a sweet kid. Pretty sensitive, quiet, but not super shy. More of an observer. He's not the first to jump into an activity, but give him time and he'll participate. His interests have always been different than those of the popular crowd. We tried various sports, a season of soccer and a basketball camp, only to come out of those with a lesson on teamwork and how it's not fair to the rest of the team to quit halfway through the season. He's had ambitions to be a paleontologist since 2nd grade. He can remember facts about dinosaurs that he's read 2 years ago. He's incredibly intelligent. He's also a huge Star Wars fan. His favorite is The Empire Strikes Back. We put him in Cub Scouts so he can socialize with kids who aren't into sports, but by the time he joined, most of the boys in the troop already knew each other. I try to dress him in what the kids are wearing, Hollisters, Aero, etc. He has no preference for what he wears, and if I can take away one thing that kids always single other kids out for, then I'll do it. Overall, I think he'll be okay. He's got 2 to 3 friends with similar interests. He's a smart kid. If he can get through middle school and high school, I think he'll do just fine. I wonder if he's studying dinosaur bones as we speak. My parents moved and my little sister had to start high school in a new town, and I was worried she wouldn't make many friends. I was excited when she joined a small group and started hanging out with them until she wore a fake tail to school one day. Oh dear. Spits out cereal in the morning. Oh my god, my sister's a furry! My high school age daughter wanted to drive into the city to watch a Wes Anderson film and eat at her favorite vegetarian Indian place for her birthday. We live in the rural South. You ignorant fool. What was cool 10 years ago and what was cool now have completely switched. Your daughter wasn't unpopular, she was a damn trendsetter. At my daughter's first parent-teacher conference in first grade, I asked the teacher how my daughter was doing socially. I had noticed that there was a little talk from her about friends, unlike kindergarten, and the teacher paused uncomfortably and said something about my daughter being very bright, and sometimes bright kids don't have patience for things they find silly, which sets them apart a little. But that I shouldn't worry. My daughter will graduate high school this year, and she only has a couple of close friends, one of which she's had since third grade, and even those she doesn't really see or hang out with often. My son took longer to be obvious to me because his elementary school teacher flat lied to me and told me that he was socially doing just fine and had quite a few friends. My son does normally have a small circle of friends that he's comfortable with, but he's never been and will never be one of the popular kids. Neither one of my kids are bullied. My daughter was in elementary school, but not since, and I attribute a lot of that to the way our school handles the bright kids. Starting in 7th grade, the high achievers and gifted kids, my daughter is a high achiever, my son gifted, are separated out into Honors Academy. For 7th and 8th grade, they only have classes with each other, and they do a lot of forced group work and social interaction in addition to the regular curriculum. Because they're so separate from the rest of the school, there's a little chance for them to be targeted, and they form friendships with their fellow weirdos. I had a lot of doubts when they first introduced this program. My daughter's 7th grade class was the inaugural year, but it definitely seems to have resulted in happier kids. Neither of my kids have a ton of friends or in the neighborhood of popular, but they have a niche at school and feel safe and able to be themselves, which is great. Of course, their district also instituted a character program about 5 years ago, which also seems to have had some impact on how the kids interact. With all the talk of the gifted kids curriculum, I'm thinking about Malcolm in the Middle a little bit. God, that and My Name is Earl are absolute TV gold. If you haven't seen them, definitely check them out. I've known since I met him for the first time. He's my stepson, so we first met when he was 5, and he was just the biggest little whiny brat you could ever meet. He's now almost 9 and still a bit of a little crybaby, but less so. He's had no friends at school because he's an obsessive Star Wars geek. Husband and I take blame for this. We're both huge fans, but he was named to surpass us and hit the freaky stage. It is all he talks about, and it tends to alienate the other kids. But I think what truly does it is when he acts like a Lego person. All day, every day, as long as we're not running errands, he walks like they do on Lego cartoons and holds his hands in a C shape to mimic their hands. Talks like Yoda fairly often as well. He's the kid having a great time by himself, playing all the different roles in his game. I think all this makes me love him more. He's a little awkward genius, and I wouldn't want him any other way. Oh, and I don't worry about him picking up chicks later in life because he already has a girlfriend. He tells me he hasn't gotten a new one because the girls in his new class just aren't pretty to him. Apparently, he's got some high standards. I can't deny it. I'm picturing it. I'm picturing that little boy doing his Yoda voice and doing the Lego walk, and I'm just thinking, trouble in Lego City there is. I secretly hope my daughter doesn't turn out cool. I want her to have some good, trustworthy, and responsible friends, and I want her to be a kid who likes to read, do art, exercise, and chill with dad playing video games. I have a vague idea why people do it, but there's a specific reason I read that one. So basically, the whole thing where it's like, because you're a cool kid immediately means you're kind of a piece of crap. That is not the case. People are not arbitrary two-dimensional things. You can be cool and be nice. You can be uncool and a total douchebag. Hell, I'm pretty sure most of the time there are like several opinions on who is actually the cool kids at school, because schools are big, especially high schools. I remember turning around to my friend and being like, wait, you think they're the cool kids? I thought they were the cool kids. But I meant it more in like, no, they're cool. They are actually cool and nice and everyone likes them. But I concur, being a dad and having your child play video games with you it's a nice thought. My daughter was in developmentally delayed classes for 2 years of pre-K, then had a special helper for kindergarten with speech every day. We moved and in first grade she was different and could not make friends. She was received from speech and remedial reading put her on Adderall for ADHD without hyperactivity, and she makes A's and B's but still different. Her storytelling was a little weird. I've always been well-liked but an introvert. She's an extrovert and was not well-liked. I started giving her social tips. Ask what they want to do. Let them do the talking. Ask about what they like. People like to talk about themselves. Now she has a ton of friends. So weird that it worked. I think I've always known but never cared. Popularity means nothing later in life. My only concern is that they find a few friends to hang out with at school. Man's got his priorities straight. It's not about gaining popularity or anything like that. It's having friends, true friends, and, kindling joy and all that stuff. Best thing you can do for your kids at the end of the day is make sure they're happy, safe, and you love them. I mean, damn, with all the anxieties that parents must have with raising kids, it's no wonder that you screw up in a couple of places. But, like I said, just gotta make sure that you're doing your best. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Linked in the description below.